Well, good afternoon, everyone. Most of the action this week is in the House of Representatives, but the Senate will be doing some important things this week. We are going to vote this week to do away with the Biden California mandate, which was an attempt by the Biden administration to impose a electric vehicle mandate across this country through the California Clean Air Act waiver. And so we're going to be having that vote later this week. The impact of that particular rule would be devastating across our economy. And now California, by taking that action, another 17 or 18 states have been implicated. And essentially what you've got is an electric vehicle mandate that will be in place almost across the entire country. And so we will take action to undo that. And obviously the Democrats are going to make a lot of noise about that, but the truth of the matter is this has nothing to do with the legislative filibuster. This is the Congress and the United States Senate submitting to the body the question of whether or not the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, ought to be able to determine for us what it is and isn't a rule. The administration says it's a rule. The GAO has said it's not. And the United States Senate is going to be heard from on this issue tomorrow and do something that will avoid, again, what I think and what a lot of people across this country think would be a catastrophic outcome, and that is an EV mandate that would be imposed across the United States. We have already repealed this year through the Congressional Review Act 14 burdensome Biden regulations, and that is what we will do with that issue, with the Biden California mandate sometime later this week, probably tomorrow. But the other good news this week is the Democrats allowed us to get on and to start to debate the Genius Act. And so we're very excited about the opportunity to actually do something that will be incredibly meaningful to people across this country, to consumers, issuers, and to ensure that there is a general regulatory framework in place. And the leaders on that have been Senators Hagerty and Senator Lummis, and I'm going to turn to them right now and allow them to make some comments about the Genius Bill, and then we'll go to Senator Brasso, Senator Capito, and we'll open up to your questions. Senator Hagerty.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Leader Thune, and I would like to say to everyone, I look forward to making history, hopefully this week, as we continue to make progress on the Genius Act. What does it do? I think it's very important to understand this. We're modernizing the payment system here in America. We're going to put America at the forefront of innovation rather than having America behind as the caboose. This is a dramatic new technology. Innovation is happening here in America. I don't want to see it pushed offshore. I want to see it happening right here. The implications of this are incredible in terms of protecting consumers. Today it's an unregulated market. What we'll do is make certain that everyone knows that stablecoins are backed by U.S. dollars, and that those dollars are backed up by cash and short-term U.S. Treasuries, the highest quality instruments, so that these instruments can be used for digital trade all over the world. This will ensure U.S. dollar dominance. It will advance our position as the reserve currency in the world rather than see the retreat and the decline that we might otherwise experience. The other thing that it will do is it will stimulate demand for United States Treasuries. In fact, the projections are that by the end of this decade, stablecoin issuers here in the United States will be the #1 holders of U.S. Treasuries in the world. Think about that. I'd far prefer a benign stablecoin issuer to the CCP or other sovereign nations. So I think there's a lot to like about this bill. I appreciate the bipartisan support that we've received moving on to it, and I look forward again to making history with my colleagues later this week. Thank you.
Well, this has been a long time coming, and a lot of negotiations have gone on to get this bill to this point where we had a strong bipartisan vote last night. We look forward to sending this bill to the House so the U.S. can establish itself as the country that has adopted the most advanced, forward-thinking digital asset policy in the world. It's something President Trump supports. It's something that we are dedicated to because the digital asset industry is already embedded in our country and worldwide. And we need to have something that preserves a dual banking system, that recognizes the US dollar through our US treasuries as the important global asset that they are and continues continues to be, as Senator Hagerty says, the impetus for our being the global world reserve currency. This week, Coinbase, a digital asset company, joins the S&P 500, the first digital asset company to join the S&P 500. Digital assets are here to stay. Among the 20 largest holders in the world of U.S. Treasuries is a stablecoin. These are embedded assets that we haven't regulated, that we haven't welcomed into our country until the Genius Act. I want to thank Senator Hagerty for his tireless work on this. I want to thank Senator Thune for giving us another chance at getting this to closure. And it is a great advance forward, not only for the U.S. Senate in that it is the first bill that's come out of the Banking Committee in 8 years, but it is our first effort to integrate our country into what will be a faster and cheaper means by which individuals, small businesses, and others can engage in business all over the world. Thank you.
Well, thanks to Senator Hagerty and Senator Lummis for their incredible leadership on this very important issue. What I want to talk about is this Democrat delusional dream of eliminating gas-powered vehicles in America. They want to force-feed every American who drives, make them drive an electric vehicle. Well, the Senate is going to get rid of this Biden-era electric vehicle California mandate. It's expansive and expensive, economically devastating for all the country. You know, right now, electric vehicles are about 7% of the market in America. Sales are declining. And yet, what they put in place, what they're trying to put in place, is absolutely impractical. They want 35% of all the vehicles sold starting next year to be electric. They want 100% in the year 2035 to be electric. The fines are terribly high, $20,000 per vehicle, if you don't sell those vehicles that the Biden administration wants to make people buy. If people don't want to buy them, too bad, they still get fined. So the House of Representatives, all the Republicans plus 35 Democrats, including Democrats from California, voted to end that mandate. That's what the Senate is going to do as well. We see the Democrats here in the Senate, they're clinging to this last pillar of the Green New Deal. That's a deal that lost in the elections in November, and the Republicans have won the House, the Senate, and the White House, and we're going to eliminate this California electric vehicle mandate.
Hi, everybody. As chair of the Environment and Public Works Committee, I am the one who is leading the California waiver of the Congressional Review Act. I think that when you talk about lack of choice, when you talk about a mandate in California that spreads to 17 other states, the onerous quality of this rule is just beyond description. Not just the penalties forcing certain states and certain consumers to purchase a vehicle that they may not want or that they can't find. It really eliminates what I think our country was built on, which is individual choice and making the decisions for yourselves. So I think the one thing that's interesting about this mandate is the Biden administration, California asked for this waiver in May of 2023. It was not granted until the very end of December of 2024. Do you know why? Because they know the American people reject this handily, and it would have really cost them in states like Michigan and other places to have an EV vehicle mandate in front of the American people. So they held it. The Trump administration, under Administrator Zeldin's leadership, submitted it as a rule. It is a rule submitted to this. It is within the boundaries of the Congressional Review Act, and we're going to deal with it tomorrow.
Questions for Genius? Any of the Genius questions? All right. Yeah.
The Justice Department charged listening Congresswoman with assault over the protest at the ICE facility in New Jersey. How do you square that when the same administration pardoned so many who assaulted officers on January 6th?
Well, nobody, of course, is above the law, and I have full confidence that the court system, the judicial system in this country, will handle that issue in an appropriate way.
Leader Thune, as you know, Moody's has joined Fitch and S&P in downgrading U.S. credit, and primarily because they don't have confidence that this Congress can rein in the national debt. Is it time for a more realistic assessment and accounting of the cost of reconciliation, given that it's going to increase the deficit and debt regardless of how you score that, and it's going to add to interest costs both in the private sector and for the government?
Well, I think the stated goal, we just heard from the speaker at lunch, is to come up with a bill that doesn't add to the deficit or the debt. And so hopefully we will be able to deliver on that. But the one thing you have to have, if you want to deal with deficits and debt, is a dynamic economy. You have to have an economy that's growing and expanding. And a lot of the tax policies included in the reconciliation bill under consideration in the House, that ultimately will come to the Senate, do just that. They are pro-growth policies that create greater growth in the economy, better paying jobs, and when people are making money and taking realizations, they're paying taxes and tax revenues go up. So you need the pro-growth policies, many of which will be included in there. And then, but it is a warning shot that we need to get serious about spending restraint. And that's why I think a lot of our colleagues have made it very clear that in order for a bill to get through the House and the Senate and on the President's desk, it has to make a meaningful dent in the out-of-control spending we've seen over the past several years. And, you know, we just coming off 4 years of the Biden administration. They did 2 reconciliation bills. They added $3 trillion in spending and $3 trillion to the debt. And we're now trying to undo some of that damage. But we have to get this thing in a place where we're slowing the rate of growth in spending and bending that curve down, getting growth in the economy. And before long, you can start seeing this thing start to come back into balance. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take courage. It's going to take principled leadership. And a willingness of Republicans, obviously, because we're not going to get any help from Democrats, to do the hard work when it comes to reducing spending.
Can you tell me your response to Democrats saying that this CRA vote is equivalent to going nuclear and that it's a slippery slope here with the filibuster, which you have said you want to preserve?
Correct, and I do, and that hasn't changed, and that won't change. The only people that have attempted to get rid of the legislative filibuster are the Democrats. Every single one of them up there that's popping off and spouting off has voted literally to get rid of the legislative filibuster. This is a novel and narrow issue that deals with the Government Accountability Office and whether or not they ought to be able to determine what is a rule and what isn't, or whether the administration and the Congress ought to be able to make that decision. This administration has said it's a rule. We believe it qualifies under the CRA, as Senator Capito has said, and we're going to move forward and do away with a mandate that essentially is an attempt by the Democrats to get rid of the internal combustion engine. It's that simple. They want an EV mandate nationwide. They're trying to do it through California, and this has nothing to do with the legislative filibuster. This is a rule, and everything we're going to be doing tomorrow is going to be limited to that. One more, yeah.
As you know, the president is very supportive of this bill. He just wants it to pass. Speaker Johnson was over here. A lot of your members say that they can't support it as is. What changes need to happen in order for this to move through the Senate?
I think a lot of the issue in the Senate will be, as I mentioned earlier, does it have sufficient spending reforms to get us on a more sustainable fiscal path? I think most of our members are in favor of a lot of the tax policy, and particularly those portions of the tax policy that are stimulative, that are pro-growth, that will create greater growth in the economy. But when it comes to the spending side of the equation, this is a unique moment in time and in history where we have the House and the Senate and the White House and an opportunity to do something meaningful about out-of-control government spending. So I think a lot of it's around that. There are dials and tweaks on some of the tax issues that our members will want to talk about. I think one of the principal differences, at least right now, in some of the House versions that I've seen, and I can't speak because they haven't passed it yet, is they have cliffs and some shorter term, I would say, time frames when it comes to some of the tax policies. We believe that permanence is the way to create economic certainty and thereby attract and incentivize capital investment in this country that creates those good paying jobs and gets our economy growing and expanding and generates more government revenue. So there are different views about what the length of some of these tax policies ought to be, and we'll have an opportunity to be heard on that when it comes to the Senate. Thank you all.
Genius? Do you want to talk about Genius? He has a question. There you go.
That- We've had an enormous amount of input on this bill. It's been on the street since October. I can tell you we've had every list that you could imagine of final demands and final terms coming from the Democrats. I was very pleased to see 16 of them join us last night. We were actually at one point at 18 and 2 of them pulled back, but I'm very optimistic that we'll get there. If there are technical tweaks that people need, I've told them I'm more than happy to work with them to get that done. And I'm going into this with an optimistic viewpoint that we ought to be able to get here to conclude this legislative activity by the end of the week. I'm hopeful.
Can I ask about market structure? I know that needs to be addressed separately. You had a bill that would do that. Is that going to be something that can move in tandem ultimately when the House passes what they will pass? Do you see that moving together or separately?
You know, the House has also worked on stablecoins. For a couple years, Senator Gillibrand and I, who have a market structure bill, have been working with our House counterparts on market structure. It is undetermined whether they will be joined at any point, so we continue to pursue strategies that would allow both market structure and the Genius Act or stablecoin legislation to cross the finish line this calendar year.
Yeah, and I would say this, someone made the remark yesterday that if you can't get the stablecoin legislation done, you'll never get market structure accomplished. And I think that's true. The stablecoin legislation is straightforward. It's easy to explain. I think my colleagues understand this. This is basically just converting the dollar to the digital currency of preference. And what that has to do with, it makes it secure, it protects consumers, but at the same time, it establishes the dollar as the currency of choice for all digital payments and takes us from a system that was born in the 70s and 80s to the 21st century. And as Senator Lummis said earlier, this puts us at the very cutting edge of innovation and technology. A lot of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, I think, see this promise, want to see us get started, and this will move straight into market structure. This is a great way to build that momentum.
How was the education process for your members? Obviously, a lot of them didn't understand the difference between digital assets. So can you talk about how that went to get them?
I'll tell you, you may have a lot more to say about this, but I'd say our members have been very open to talking, but a number of them just haven't had the experience, have not had the market's experience, and I think everybody, as they begin to talk about it, understand it, realize that this is a chance to actually put America at the forefront of innovation and strengthen our position as the reserve currency of the world and actually stimulate demand for U.S. Treasuries at the same time. There's a lot to like about this.
Yeah, I think just the fact that Coinbase is joining the S&P 500 this week helps us, members of Congress, see that this industry is maturing quickly and that they need to learn more about it. It started with Senator Sinema and I. We founded a caucus here in the Senate to help educate members and staffers about digital assets. This stablecoin bill, the Genius Act, is the first opportunity we've actually had to legislate on the floor of the Senate about it. So many senators are learning about it in real time, learning the tremendous difference between a stablecoin, which is a hugely different asset than Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency. And there are people that conflate cryptocurrencies with Bitcoin. So we're making progress. It's slow, but finally people are recognizing the adoption, adherence, and involvement of this important new asset in our digital economy of the 21st century. So welcome, everybody.
I might add one more point to the education piece. There seems to be a lot of confusion, or had been a lot of confusion, about whether this might involve meme coins or coins issued by a particular issuer or person. This legislation is agnostic as to company, it's agnostic as to person. This is simply about putting the United States of America on the best digital payments path that it possibly could be on. This is about a payments currency, and it's about consumer protection, and it's about dollar dominance and treasury dominance. That's all it's about, and there are a lot of superfluous questions going around, but I think we've done a good job of answering those. Thanks. Thank you all. Thank you all.